Welcome to part 1 of our gardening journey. I asked on my Instagram story if I should make a video on this experience, and the response was a resounding yes. So I've been chronicling our very amateur foray into gardening this spring, and you can come along with us for the journey and hopefully learn alongside us if this is something you are also interested in doing. So last year when we were house hunting, James was really passionate about the idea of growing vegetables one day when we had a house and a yard. I think a lot of people probably expect that this was all my doing and my idea, but it has really been all James. I was actually really skeptical at first because I didn't know how much work this was going to be or how committed he would be to this project. I was supportive. I was like, if this is something you want to do, that's great, but I am leaving it to you. And then when we bought this house, the previous owners left us a raised garden bed in the yard, so I was like, okay, let's go for it. We have this here for free, we might as well give it a shot. And it is definitely in rough shape. I think if this is something we continue doing next summer, James has a plan to build new ones. It is falling apart and he actually had to like weld a bracket to hold it together. But for the time being, it'll do. Our first step was figuring out what plant hardiness zone we live in and what we can actually grow in our climate. This info is really easy to find. There are tons of websites and resources online, but you Google what zone you live in and there are color-coded maps. We live in zone 3, and from there we found websites that listed the best plants to grow in our area. The next step was assessing the health of the soil in our planter. We obviously have no idea what the previous owners did with this, how long the soil has been there, what they planted. So this is another thing we looked up online, and one of the main tips was to dig a little hole in your soil and then wait about 5 minutes and see how many little critters start appearing. And there was a ton of earthworms and bugs, which is a sign of really nutrient-rich soil, so that was a good sign. It was a little compacted, and James's grandma gave us the advice to kind of start turning the soil and mix in a bag of fertilizer, so that is what you are currently watching James do. I believe this just makes the soil a little bit more workable, which will allow the roots to spread out better and also allow better circulation of water, fertilizer, etc. Then we went shopping, which, let's face it, that's one of the best parts of any new hobby. So we went and we chose our seeds and made a game plan for what we were actually going to grow.
Here are all the little seeds and starts we have today. I don't really know what I'm doing. Quick disclaimer.
Yeah, we're just winging it a little bit, and we probably can't plant all of these in our little garden bed.
We got some sugar snap peas,
classic,
which are delicious snacking. We got some green beans, purely for Kovu because he loves green beans.
Yeah, and those we probably don't have to plant very many of because it's not like you can eat that many.
Yeah. And then we got some spinach, some onion, green onions.
Like I said in my recent video, I've been growing them in like just a little jar of water on our windowsill, so I wanted to try actually planting some because they don't grow that fast. 2 kinds of carrots.
2 kinds of carrots. I mostly wanted to do carrots is the thing I wanted to grow the most. I want to see which of these types I like better.
And then we also have some dino kale, it looks like. Do you want to show the potato bucket that your grandma gave us?
It's a bag to grow your potatoes in. It's like a 10-gallon bucket essentially, and you can start your potatoes with this flap in where you can plant your potatoes, have them started in there, and then you just keep adding soil as you see the plants grow.
And the flap there is kind of the coolest part because then you can just reach right in there to pull out your potatoes too.
Yeah, you don't even have to dig through all the dirt.
And so this is going to be my little project. I also got this little planter to start growing some fresh herbs. And this is really nice because these come out here, so I can just take these and put them on the windowsill when it gets cold out. But to start, I got chives, basil, cilantro, and thyme. James's grandma also gave us potatoes to start that potato bag that you just saw. We also bought a large tomato plant from Costco.
So this tomato plant had an unfortunate accident in the Costco parking lot. As you can see, it lost its top half, but it's making a great recovery with a lot of new growth.
It was also really, really windy the day we bought it. Like, it was probably too windy for Costco to even have them outside.
All the old leaves kind of don't look great.
Yeah.
but the new leaves all look really healthy, so hopefully it'll make a recovery.
We got a trellis for our snap peas, and we also got a separate little pot to grow green onions, because James read somewhere that you should grow onions and plant onions separately from everything else. So one thing I've seen most people do is they will start their seeds in little individual containers indoors before actually planting them outside. We did not do this, so this is something we are going to learn from experience if that was a mistake or not. So far it seems to be okay. We did sprout some of the seeds just on damp paper towels in jars as like a little experiment. I think the main reason people do this is to just kind of get a head start, because in our climate it is recommended that you don't really start planting until May long weekend. You know, if you can plant everything inside ahead of time and then transplant it into your garden, you're probably just starting off on a little bit of a better foot, and once again you don't have to wait till May long and start with like just the little baby seeds in the ground. That is what we did though, so we will see how it turns out. Maybe we will start them indoors in little pots of soil next year. The only thing we did plant early was the snap peas. So when you see the update clips, that's why they're way bigger than everything else. We planted them at the beginning of May because one of James's coworkers also grows peas, and he said he does them earlier when it's still a little bit colder out, so we just followed suit. So then May long weekend arrived and it was officially planting time.
Finally planting day, and I'm gonna transplant my tomato plant and my little pea plants that I've been growing in this jar, and plant a couple beans and some spinach and some kale. And I've been waiting for this. It's May long weekend, so
it's time.
Let's do it.
We did transplant some of the little seeds and everything that we started in the jars into the garden. We also moved our tomato plant into a bigger pot that was once again left for us by the previous owners. This was all James. He has been in charge of everything, like the planting, the spacing, how many rows of everything we're doing. That's all been him. If you have any advice for us, of course, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below. I'm filming this on June 10th, and here is what our garden is currently looking like at this stage. We did realize that the trellis we bought for the peas was probably a little bit thick, so what James did, you can see he like weaved a shoelace throughout it just to give those little pea shoots something kind of thinner to grab onto. Like a thin metal trellis probably would have been better, but the options were a little bit limited at the garden center, so that's why we chose this one. With the potatoes, we have been recovering them with dirt every single time they start popping through, and they have been growing like crazy. And in our green onion pot, we planted seeds along the perimeter, but then in the middle we planted like actual fully formed green onion bulbs, so that is why you're seeing the little sprouts, but then also like full-fledged green onions in the middle. Everything seems to be doing really well at this point from our amateur perspectives. We did end up planting a little bit of everything that we bought. We're both really excited to see the results and see how everything progresses over the summer. I want to say this has been a lot easier than I expected so far, but at the same time maybe it's been easy because we like missed a crucial step, and this is all going to fail horribly, so only time will tell. I have a feeling that in a few months' time we're probably going to have just an abundance of vegetables, going to have way more than we can possibly eat, just the two of us. And that brings us to what part 2 of this little series is going to be. I wanted to post this pretty early on in the year while this is still relevant and while you still have time to plant your own garden if this is something you're considering, and this video is like giving you the push that you need to get started. So I plan to do an update or part 2 later on in the summer when our garden is further along. Hopefully we will have some vegetables that we can maybe do a little taste test on, and I will recap the experience and share what we have learned. That's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I hope this is something you have found interesting or helpful. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Leave me a comment down below with any tips. Once again, we can definitely use them, so that will be much appreciated. Go follow me on social media. I'm at SariReanna on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe down below if you are new, but I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye guys.